Well, that brings me to another, what seems to me a seminal moment in your life, and you've had a lot of them, a lot of these kind of synchronistic moments, but this is a big one. And I don't know that everyone would have had the presence of mind to do what you did, speaking of being an interviewer, but 3 months into your classes at Los Angeles City College, John F. Kennedy is shot in Dallas, Texas. This is not only an historical turning point for America and the world, but it was a personal turning point for you, because as it happens, as you're watching the news reports on TV of the president's assassination, a classmate sitting next to you says, "Hey, I know that guy," speaking about Lee Harvey Oswald. He had been in the Marines with him. And you had the presence of mind to take that student into another room and interview him right then and there. Is that correct?
That's absolutely true.
Tell that story.
You're right. Specifically, it was November 22nd, 1963. And I guess I had been at LA City College just a matter of months. And the class was doing what we did in class when an announcement came over the loudspeaker that the president had been shot. And the teacher immediately turned on the TV, and we all gathered around it for two reasons. One, because it was the death of the president, and parenthetically, the end of the American dream. But almost as significantly to broadcasters, to observe how it would be covered. And we watched. And after 15 or 20 minutes, and I remember Walter Cronkite taking off his glasses, looking up at the clock, giving the exact time, and saying that CBS News has just received confirmation that the president is dead. And he wiped a tear from his eye, put the glasses on, and continued. A lot of news flashes, a lot of things went by in a hurry. And in a very short period of time, the very first image appears on TV of a suspect named Lee Harvey Oswald. It's remarkable how that image of Lee Harvey Oswald appeared so quickly on television, but that's for a different show and a different experience. But as I was standing there watching the monitor, a fellow classmate of mine, Roland was his name, he said, "Hot damn, that's Lee." And I turned to face him, and I said, "Lee? This is Lee Oswald." And I said, "Do you know him?" And Roland said, "I served in the Marine Corps with him. We were together. I know him very well." And I asked Roland if he wouldn't mind just walking with me into another room so we could discuss this for a few minutes. All the other classmates were transfixed by the images coming from the TV. I sat down with Roland in a studio. I turned on a Wallensack tape recorder, and I asked him to recall for me his time with Lee Harvey Oswald, where they discussed everything, including politics, where he appeared to know him relatively well. And I asked him if it was okay for me to use the tape, and he said, "Yeah, sure." Classes were dismissed. I took the bus back to my apartment and listened to the tape. Keep in mind, Jim, at this time, there was only a flickering image of Oswald on TV.
Right.
He had been arrested and accused of shooting a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the police officer's name?
I don't. I remember the incident. I remember he was at a movie theater, all of that, but I don't remember the police officer's name.
It's strange how those things become lost.
Yeah.
His name was Officer J.D. Tippit.
Mm. Okay.
And Oswald was accused of shooting the police officer moments after President Kennedy was assassinated and then escaping to a local movie theater. And the woman at the box office of the movie theater recalled a very agitated young man buying a quick ticket and running into the theater. And she thought there was something weird about that, given the proximity, and she called the Dallas Police Department. They went to the theater, they turned the lights on, and there was this guy, and they arrested him and charged him with that murder. He had not yet been charged in the assassination of President Kennedy. For the record, and as an addendum, I believe that President Kennedy was assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, and that Oswald may or may not have fired a shot that day. But that's for another program and another time. But there was something that Roland told me during that first interview, within hours. He said, "Elliot, you know what was strange about that? We talked, and he told me that he had to get out of the Marines because of a family emergency, and he was released on a hardship discharge. But it wasn't too long after that that I read in the newspaper that he showed up in Russia to renounce his American citizenship and become Russian." And I kept thinking to myself, how does a guy who gets out of the Marines in a hardship discharge wind up going to Russia? A good question.
Yeah.
I called KFWB. It's at the time the local all-news radio station. And I said, "Hi, my name is Elliot, and I'm a student at Los Angeles City College. And I just did an interview with a guy who spent time in the Marines with Lee Harvey Oswald. I want to know if you want to put it on the radio station." And within about 8 minutes, a guy on a motorcycle showed up at the apartment. And within about 12 minutes, the very first insight into a suspect was broadcast on KFWB. 5 minutes after it aired, I probably received 10 or 15 phone calls from other radio and local television stations saying, "Son, that interview that you have, do you mind if we send somebody over to pick that up?" I said, "Come on down." And then by the time the sun set, I turned on TV and I heard the interview on the network news. And I learned a lot that day about America, about politics, and about the media. And I understood about how it goes in this door and comes out that door.
Mm-hmm.
And how if you got the story, you've got the audience. And if you have something to present, you don't need a whole lot of education. You don't need that other brick on the wall to set it free. I guess it was my first break. I guess it was my first exclusive. I guess that would be the official beginning of my broadcasting career. It was an accident over a tragedy. I haven't spoken to Roland since that day. I haven't listened to the tape since that day. But when I reflect back upon that day, because Kennedy looked a lot different than Eisenhower.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy was the first Obama.
Exactly. That's a
So
good way to put it.
when people talk today about this infusion of optimism they feel about just seeing the presence of a young, vibrant, assertive dude and his gorgeous, articulate wife leading the nation forward, that's cool and I agree with it. For me, it happened the first time I saw JFK and Jackie Kennedy Onassis.
Well, I'm sure it happened for President Obama the first time he saw, even though he wasn't born then. I'm sure
I wonder if he saw the videotapes and watched the way people... No, of course he watched the videotapes.
Yeah.
But he wasn't... When was he born?
Well, he's in his 40s, so I don't think he was he alive back then?
We couldn't have had any memory of it.
No, God, no. He'd be a little tiny kid if he was even alive.
Mr. President, you should have been there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, these two people, let me tell you, it's one thing for Bill Clinton to play the saxophone in Arsenio Hall, but when you saw JFK and Jackie Kennedy Onassis, I mean, it looked like the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah.
I mean, all that talk about Camelot and the rest of it, we've later learned that some of that might have been some media spin, but at the time, they were the young, vibrant people who were going to lead us into the 21st century. Right. That was the new face of America. Mm-hmm. That was my face of America. Yeah. So a tremendous personal loss and a peculiar professional beginning.
But an interesting one that you, again, had the presence of mind to go, come with me. You know, that's an interesting thing, because I don't know if I would have done that at that age. Yes, now I would, but at that age, because I would be so, oh my God, the president was shot. That's kind of just like it's a bullhorn going off in your mind. And for you to go, you know, to actually listen to this guy and let it connect it. I know Lee Harvey Oswald. Come with me. We need to talk.
Jim. Channel A and Channel B. Channel A is who we are.
Yeah.
Channel B is what we do.
Yeah.
I knew who I was. I was learning what to do, what I do.
Yeah.
And I learned my lesson. And one of the lessons in broadcasting is when you see or feel a story, seize it.
Yeah.
That's what an exclusive means.
Amen.